This is today's economic update. I'm Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work. Oxfam International released its report. It does this annually at the same time as the World Economic Forum meets in Davos, Switzerland. The contrast between the World Economic Forum, on the one hand, and the Oxfam International Report on global inequality, the clash between these two is nothing short of monumental. The New York Times on January 20th had a lead story in its business section, and it went something like this: that the World Economic Forum, meeting in the fanciest, most expensive hotels in a glitzy resort of Switzerland, Davos, is, and I quote, searching for its soul, end quote. At the same time, Oxfam International informs us, and this is the extraordinary thing, that the 162 richest persons in the world today have more wealth than the bottom half of the population of this planet. That if you take the slightly more than 2,000 billionaires that exist in the world today, their combined wealth is roughly equivalent to the wealth of the bottom 60% of the people on this planet. This is a level of inequality that is morally, ethically, absolutely beyond criticism. It takes us back to the worst examples in history of such inequality. The pyramid builders in ancient Egypt, the emperors in various parts of the world that suffered through that kind of inequality. Millions of people today live in poverty, have inadequate water, food, education, transportation, health care, while a tiny number of people sit on piles of wealth they can never consume and that function simply to gather into their hands even more wealth relative to the rest of us. No greater criticism of the capitalist system exists than to point to this level of inequality as the consequence of a world economy in which capitalism is the dominant economic system that has become dominant over the last 300 years in a relentless process of subordinating every corner of the planet to the logic of profit-making at all costs, profit as the bottom line. And the irony is the even more profound bottom line isn't the profit, but the inequality that a profit-driven system produces. I ask all of you, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Does your religious commitment square with an economic system that works like this? Does your sense of community with fellow human beings square with a capitalism that produces this kind of inequality? The New York Times says that the capitalists and their political supporters, I'm being polite, gathered in Davos are searching for their soul. If they have one, it ought to be telling them that the first order of business is to admit that capitalism's record of producing this kind of inequality disqualifies it from continuing to be the way human beings produce and distribute goods and services. It's time to do better than capitalism, never more than now.